Welcome to Halo Innovations Assembly Guide for the HC-2400 Plasma Table. We're going to start off by building the base of the table. Please unpack and lay out the parts shown for this step. Before we start the assembly of this step, we're going to confirm the orientation of the parts. Part number 5 will have the stainless steel tabs facing up. Part number 4 will have the smaller hole facing the top and the larger hole facing the outside of the table. Rail number 3 will have the Phillips screws closer to the outside edge. Now we can take the 14mm bolt and washer and install it through the top of rail number 5. Then feed the bolt through rail number 4 and install the spacer sleeve and nut. Please note that we will not tighten any hardware until the assembly of the base is complete. Please repeat the same steps for the other side of rail number 5. As we begin to attach rail number 3, you'll need to remove the end caps from each side of the frame rail before you install the bolt and the spacer up through the bottom of rail number 4. Then reach into rail number 3 to install the washer and nut. Please repeat the same steps for the other side of rail number 3. Now we're going to flip the frame over and begin to install the legs. I'm going to start with leg 2'2" and can be easily identified by the 4 Phillips screws installed on the side of the leg that will need to face the outside of the table. Using 2 of the 13mm bolts, we can then attach the leg to the frame. Please be sure that the larger holes on the legs are facing out so that you can install the spacer. Next, we'll install leg number 2'1" at the opposite corner of the table. The last 2 legs, labeled number 1, are not location specific. Now that the assembly of the table base is complete, I'm going to go around the table only tightening the 13mm leg bolts. Then I'll go around the table and tighten the 4 14mm bolts. For the second step of this CNC table assembly, we are going to be building the X and Y access gantry. Please unpack and lay out the parts shown for this step. I'm going to start by inserting the Y-axis rail into the X-axis gantry truck. You'll need to remove both end caps from each side of rail number 10. And be sure that the larger grouping of 4 holes are facing the inside of the table before inserting it into the gantry truck. Next, I'm going to assemble the gantry mounting plates on the back side of the gantry rail using part number 14 and 16. Plate number 14 will have a notch facing the outside of the table. Be sure to install the bolt into plate 14 so that the nut is facing on the inside of the table. Once both 14mm bolts are finger tight, we will mount the stepper motor, part number 17. Start by removing the bolts from the motor's mounting plate. Then we'll need to feed them through the gantry rail to secure the motor bracket. Now we can move over to the other side of the gantry rail and we'll install the last 2 mounting plates, part number 15 and 16. Next, we're going to install the gantry drive screw. We will need to spin the shaft clockwise through this mount while holding down the spring clip. You will need to feed enough length through the mount so that the rod can be inserted into the motor. Using a 3mm Allen key, then tighten down the clamp to hold the shaft in place. Now it's time to place the gantry onto the base frame and install the 14mm bolts through the frame rail. After all the bolts are installed in the mounting plates, we'll then use a 14mm to tighten all 4 of the upper and lower bolts at both ends. We'll now attach the end plate for the drive rod. After removing the screws from the mounting plate, we will slip the clamp over the rod, Then install both the screws through the back rail with a 3/16 Allen key. After the bracket is tightened, we will secure the stepper motor, then ensure the drive screw clamps are tightened. Since all the hardware on the gantry rail has been tightened, I will reinstall the end caps before heading over to the other side of the table to install the gantry support rails. We will begin by removing all of the Phillips screws from part number 3 on the base frame. Then we can install part number 12 on the base frame. Be sure that the screws on the vertical plate are facing outwards. Next, we will remove all the screws from the vertical plate of part number 12 so that we can install the gantry roller track. For the last part of the gantry assembly, we'll install the end cap roller using a 3mm Allen key. The third step of this assembly will be installing the stainless steel water table and the tray slats. First, we will insert the water table onto the base. The orientation of the drain plug can be positioned to the user's preference. You'll only need to make sure that the water table is squared up with the bottom left corner of the gantry frame. Then we can begin to install the 4 mounting clamps using a 5mm Allen key. The last step of building the water table will be installing the tray slats. If you find that you are having trouble installing the tray slats, you can apply a slight bend to each end of the slat to help line up with the cuts in the water table. Step 4 will include mounting and wiring the torch height control, limit switches, motor controller, and operator station. We will start off this step by using a 5mm Allen key to remove the 4 bolts and washers from the gantry trolley. Then we will use that hardware to mount the torch height control assembly, followed by the X-axis limit switches to the trolley. When mounting the control arm bracket, it will need to be installed on the right front leg of this machine. Use the hardware supplied on part number 27 and a 5mm Allen key to secure the arm to the desired elevation. Now we're going to mount the operator station to that control arm. Use a 3mm Allen key to remove the 4 screws from the back of the operator station and mount it to the panel. Now we're going to mount the motor control box to leg 2'1. Using a 4mm Allen key, remove the 4 bolts in the side of the leg and install the motor controller. The cable support arm will drop in through the large hole on the main gantry rail. For the last step of the table assembly, we're going to connect all of the control wiring. Starting with cable number 40, we'll connect the matching connectors to the Z-XS motor and limit switches on the THC assembly. Using the Velcro straps, we will loosely attach the cable to the support arm. The other end of the torch height control cable will plug into the left-hand side of the control box. The cabling from the gantry will plug into the top access connection, and the motor mounted at the end of the table will plug into the lower access connection. Using cable number 39, we will install one end to the connection labeled control signal. We will also connect cable number 41 to the 120 volt connection next to the main power switch. The other end of cable 39 will connect to the back of the operator station. Excellent work assembling your new plasma table. For this last part of the video, we're going to check the general movements of the table and the operation of the limit switches. After starting up the machine, you can press any key to view the main screen. You may also need to press the escape key to return to this home screen. Pressing the G button will switch between plasma mode and demo mode. Then you can use the directional arrows and the two white buttons to move around the Z axis and the gantry on the X and Y. Once you have confirmed that all the motors are operating, we will then run the X and Y axis to a max limit to ensure that the travel direction stops on the trip plate. And we'll also check the screen to confirm that the error code is illuminated. On the models that are using a sensor versus a switch, you'll be able to see the LED illuminate when the sensor is activated. As you run the machine to the farther corners of the table, be cautious of the cable length going to the torch height control assembly and adjust the length as necessary. Thank you for your purchase of this table. We hope that this video was helpful. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Your feedback is important to us.